Welcome to the Rankings Podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Chris Stryer here. I am the president and founder of Rankings.io. You're listening to the Rankings Podcast, where I feature top business owners, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys. And speaking of top entrepreneurs, I have Sam Glover on the show. Sam is the founder of The Lawyerist. The Lawyerist helps lawyers understand the economic, demographic, and technological changes shaping the present and future of a small law firm practice. His site has thousands of posts, pages, and resources, all geared towards helping attorneys build a law firm into one that is sustainable for the next 20 years. Sam is also the co-author of The Small Firm Roadmap, a survival guide to the future of your law practice. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's dig right in. So let's talk about The Lawyerist. So how did that come about? When did you start this? What was the big idea there?
Yeah, thanks. The site started as just a place for me to talk about my complaints and my gripes about legal software as I was starting my own law firm. So I started it in about 2007, and at the time I called it solosmalltech.com. And a couple years later, my wife and I were going on a retreat for her organization that she was a part of at the time, and she helped me come up with the name Lawyerist. We really wanted to focus it on law practice rather than just solo and small firm business or small business. And then a couple years later, I was having, or not a couple months later, a couple weeks later, maybe even, I had lunch with Aaron Street, and he was looking for something to turn into a business for his next thing. And we said, okay, and decided to turn Lawyerist into a business, and launched it from there as still a blog at the time, mostly written by me. And over time, it's kind of morphed. You know, when you go visit the site now, when you engage with Lawyerist now, it's mostly around the podcast, around the community, around the lab coaching community. We've got the book, obviously. So it's much. There is no blog left, really. It's just a collection of resources, and community is the focus of it.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to dig into one of the things you mentioned here. Mm-hmm. So what was one of your biggest frustrations with the software, the legal intake software? You know, what made you go down that journey to find like a solution for attorneys?
I mean, at the time it was, I think some of my earliest posts on Lawyerist were about some of the earliest cloud-based software. There really wasn't much when I started my firm at the end of 2005. And so everything there was still, on premise, install it on your computer. Most of it was built to be connected to a server and meant to be customized with the help of expensive consultants. And it was just a frustrating experience. Everything was too complicated, too clunky, and too buggy, honestly. Just because it was installed on your own computer didn't make it fast. And so I hated it all. And I'm the kind of person who learns quickly and wants to learn about things. And so I remember paying a consultant like $2,000 to customize my installation of Time Matters, and they broke everything and I had to fix it all. And it was so frustrating. So I hated a lot, and I had a lot to gripe about, so I needed a place to vent. And so that's why I started writing.
You needed a good outlet, and that was
exactly. Yep.
Beneficial. So, it's funny, the word I keep hearing more and more nowadays is attribution. So, if I'm a small law firm, if I'm a solo practitioner, should I be considering or thinking about attribution and CRMs and legal intake software right from the beginning? Or is this something that an attorney should be thinking about as they grow?
That's a really good question. I think it's, I think that what you should be thinking about is how you want to do things, right? Developing a systems mindset where you're not thinking about what task I need to perform next, but how I want to perform these kinds of tasks, right? Like, how do I want intake to work at my firm? How do I want clients to be treated when they come to my office, or when they come to my website, when they get somebody at my firm on the phone? So think about systems and like what are the stages of those workflows. And then once you know how you want to do things, you can start looking for tools that will help you do those things more efficiently, because efficiency really is the key to growth. And a lot of times there's going to be a software product that you need to fit into that process at some point. But I don't think thinking about technology first is the way to do it. I think thinking about systems and then trying to plug technology in where it can make you more effective and more efficient is the way to do it. Most solo and small firms should absolutely be, as soon as they're ready, as soon as they have a defined system and a process for doing things, should start figuring out where they can plug in technology. Because it's going to make them more efficient. It's going to make them more effective. And so it's definitely something to work on, especially at the beginning where you have more time than clients. Like that's a good time to be worrying about that stuff. Although you also have more time than money. And so making those investments may be a little intimidating, but it's a good time to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just makes you more efficient. It's all about the client experience too. So let's dig back into the Lawyerist. At the beginning, you were blogging. This is your outlet to kind of express your thoughts and opinions on things. So how did you turn it into a business? What was that big turning point where, hey, I'm going to pursue this full time. This is my livelihood. Yeah. A
lot of people have probably heard different sides of the story. There were a few things that came together to make that happen, but Lawyerist was growing enough and I was ready to do something different than law practice for a while. And so my wife and I sat down and decided we were willing to give this a try. I closed my practice, I sold it off and decided to commit to Lawyerist. And after a while, it became apparent that was a good decision. There was enough money there once it had my full attention that it could support me and eventually Aaron, and now, like 7 people. So
yeah, absolutely. There, I go there all the time. There's tons of resources. It's gotta be, if not, and you would know this better than I do, it's gotta be the biggest source of knowledge for attorneys out there as a blog, as a resource.
I think so. I guess depending on how you measure biggest or best, but yeah. But I'm really pleased with where we are. We have a ton of traffic. I think by the time this podcast airs, we'll have something like 13,000 registered members. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So, hey, I want to dig in. I was reading your bio and it said, I think this was actually on Twitter. So it said aging skate punk. So I want to bring a little personality in here. So can you explain that?
I probably talk about this more than is healthy for a man in his early 40s, but I love skateboarding. I grew up with skateboarding in my teens and decided, but right before I turned 40, I was like, I never learned how to kickflip. I'm going to learn it. And so I bought a new skateboard and started doing it, and just putting my feet back on that thing, I was like, oh man, I forgot how much I love the feeling of being on a skateboard. And so I've been kind of obsessed since then. We have 7 skateboards on the deck right now. And I can't wait for the weather to get nicer in Minneapolis so I can just start going out the front door every day.
That's amazing. So a lot of people, they consider exercise, especially, even having to balance their form of meditation, because it kind of clears the mind. So seems like that's yours.
This is mine for sure.
Awesome. So, making the Lawyer successful, do you have any daily rituals, any routines that really make it successful?
I don't have a lot. I probably have more than I realize. But there is one thing that I've been doing every day, unless for some reason I get pulled away and forget it. I always like to take a few minutes in the morning and reflect on what I need to be doing for the day that is my priority. I got deep into getting things done at one point. I love, Agile. I love Kanban. I love all of the productivity, right? I love my notebooks. I love pens, pencils, I love all this stuff. But the reality is, and I bet most everyone experiences this, that all of the stuff they have to do is in a lot of different places. So I finally got to the point where I was just like, that's okay. I can't control that. We have our project management software. I have my personal task lists. I've got my email inbox. I've got all of this stuff all these places where things are. And so every morning I like to take just, 5-10 minutes and kind of survey everything. and decide what I'm going to be focusing on for the day. I've talked about my most important tasks practice is what I call it. And I just write down the 2, 3, 4 things that are going to have my focus throughout the day. Like other things will come up. I'll do other things when I need to, but those are the things I'm going to work on. And I've been doing that just about every day for many years at this point. I even built myself a little app to do it on so that when instead of carrying around an index card with my most important tasks, I've got it on my phone. So
nice. I love that.
Yeah.
So that seems like a recurring theme when I talk to entrepreneurs are like, what should I be spending my time on? What are my high value activities? Because you only have a limited amount of time,
right.
and you need to make them most productive. So, you've got your project management software, but all of that can be a distraction. So I definitely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about the book next. How did, coming up with the topic and the subject matter for the book, how did this come about?
I mean, we probably were years late writing that book. We probably should have written it a long time ago. But we needed to, right? Like we've been, one of the problems with writing a blog is it's a really bad way to organize information. It's a great way to say something every day or every week or every month, but it's a terrible way to organize information. And so we had gotten to the point where we had thousands and thousands of posts on Lawyerist, and people would say, like, go to Lawyerist if you want to learn how to start a law practice. But like, where? I mean, if we hadn't written about it that day, like, how would you find that information? And so there was definitely an approach that we have and a philosophy about doing that we have, but we had never really tried to organize it and lay it out. And I think our site we've actually, you started with thousands and thousands of posts and pages, which was true. We've actually deleted like 80% of our website over the last year, as part of focusing both for SEO reasons, but also just for like trying to get the essential stuff there. There's more information than there used to be, better organized, but it's all focused and better organized. And so, but the book was a really important piece of that. Was like, we need to tell a coherent story and about what we're doing, why, what lawyers need to be focused on, what the practice of law is going to be looked for, and help people get a path from where law practice is today, where their law practice probably is, to where we know it needs to get in the near future, because it's pretty easy to see where things are going. So
would you say the book is the 80-20, is the high impact items and that you should be focusing on as an intern?
I mean, like if you want to know, like if you have spent any time wondering, I wonder if I can continue running a billable hour practice where, I get up every day and just sort of do things for the first time again. I open up a blank page and start writing a brief from scratch again. Like if that's your idea of law practice and you've ever stopped to consider, I wonder if that's what law practice is going to look like, then I think this is a great book. Or if you're just like, I know that I need to change. I know that things are changing. I'm just not really sure how and what it will take for me to take advantage of that. Like, this is the book that will show you the way. Like, it is literally a roadmap to how to build a future-oriented, client-centered law practice.
That's amazing. And I also want to ask you, you piqued my SEO interest here when you said, that you nuked about 80% of the content. Did you see like a dramatic impact that had by concentrating and improving those main pieces? Tell us a little bit about that process.
So Aaron and I have, we talk about SEO a fair amount. Aaron has a very sophisticated SEO philosophy that is a little bit like we sometimes find it hard to talk to more traditional SEO folks, because it's funny to call SEO traditional, but like, you probably get this, and it's not crazy, but we've just been really radical about it, is like focusing our efforts, right? So we've had a couple of posts and pages on our website that have drawn an enormous amount of traffic over the years. And like one of the most popular pages on our site was about professional handbags or professional bags for women lawyers. And for whatever reason, that was always in like the top 5. And like, we even hired somebody who had used that post to select the same handbag that that I bought for my wife for her like travel bag. But the traffic to that site was not well focused, right? Like it was the person who we hired was not a lawyer. It was drawing in a lot of professional women in particular, from all walks of life, but we don't care about them. Not like we're not antagonistic, but like they're not our core demographic, right? Like we don't, if you're an accountant at a big accounting firm, or even if you're a lawyer in a big law firm, you are not our core demographic. And so we've done a lot of, when we find things like that are popular but poorly focused, we've been jettisoning those things. So like we definitely have less traffic, but our traffic is much higher quality than it was. And so, because our goal is only to get solo and small firm leaders to our site. That's who we want. That's who we can help. That's who we want to help. And that provides a lot higher signal to noise in our intake process, in our marketing efforts. It's better value for our advertising partners. So we try not to tell stories about traffic unless we are sure that it's also really high quality, and it's paid off. We're able to say that we think 95% of our visitors are decision makers when it comes to their firms. So we know that a huge percentage of the people who spend time on our site are the exact people we are trying to reach. And I think, law firms, it's easy to get distracted by like, this and such landing page is getting so much traffic. But if it's the wrong traffic, it doesn't matter. And that's what we've done. And so there's absolutely been like, our traffic has totally dropped overall, but the quality has gone up. And it's been interesting because what we see each time like I said, we deleted something like 2,000 pages. Definitely a drop, but what we're seeing now is kind of a recovery. As I think we're giving Google a much clearer picture of what this site is about, is my guess is what's happening there. The algorithm is really understanding with more clarity who to send to our site.
Yeah, there's just so much noise out there, and now you're speaking right to your demographic, your avatar. It just makes the overall substance so good. So I really applaud you for that, because when you got a post that's generating a ton of traffic, that you could potentially monetize, which I'm sure you did in the past. It's a big move to delete a page like that.
Yeah. Oh, there was definitely like do we really want to do this? But we're not providing value to our advertising partners if we're selling them traffic to people who they aren't trying to target either. So,
yeah, I love that. So let's talk about challenges. When you're growing the Lawyerist, is there a particular, pitfall or mistake that you learn from and that really stands out?
I think the hardest challenge that we've had to deal with is, there's probably two big ones. And they're sort of intertwined. One is change. I think a lot of companies probably deal with this, but I think we may be more extreme than most. Aaron and I really are trying to anticipate where things are going and then, get there, anticipate it and be the first there. We've stopped running display ads on our site, for example, because we know that those don't have much time left anyway. When it comes to law firms, we're trying to build a system for law firms for where they need to get to. We're trying to anticipate where law firms and lawyers need to be and get there. And what that means is, but we're also doing that internally. Like, what do our systems need to look like? What does our podcast workflow need to look like? And so one of the challenges that our company has is the job that you're doing on Monday might not be the job you're doing on Friday. And, that's probably more extreme, but it's definitely true over the course of a month or a quarter. I've had everyone at our company has had an array of different job titles over the last year, because we move responsibilities around as it makes sense. Our org chart changes every quarter. And that's, we've asked ourselves, is that wrong? But it doesn't seem like it. And so one of the constants at our company is change. And that's really hard when it comes to hiring, because if you just want to come in and be told what the expectations are and what your job is going to be, we are a terrible place to work. And because what you can expect is that it will change, and we expect everyone to help us change it, because we're trying to constantly improve, not change for the sake of change, but change because we're experimenting. We're trying to see if we can improve things. We're A/B testing our company constantly. And so that's been a real challenge with hiring too, is getting the right people in the door. 2019 was a hard year where we hired a lot and lost a lot. and learned a ton. And as a result, like the people who are working for our company right now are freaking awesome. And I think we've ironed it out, and we're moving ahead with a much healthier approach to hiring and setting expectations better, and with people who are coming in with the right mindset. But it was really hard. And there are lots of other things over the years, but that one is really top of mind for me right now, because it's still sort of defining where we are in the first quarter of 2020 is last year.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear a lot, you have to have the right people in the right seats. You may have someone in the right seat, but then maybe that position changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't take a catcher and put them in center field. They may be a great catcher, using
Right.
sports analogies, but yeah, so
that philosophy is really hard when you're constantly changing what the seats are. And we're trying not to pull the seats out from under anybody. That's not our goal. But if you have the right people that can fit in a bunch of different seats, because we're a traction company, we've been trying to modify that as well as we can to fit us. Like traction was not written for agile companies. It just wasn't. And so we've had to tweak it and try to work with it.
Yeah. So guys, if you're listening, so Traction is the entrepreneur operating system. We're a Traction company too. So, it hits, the right people in the right seats, the accountability chart. So not focusing on a hierarchy, mainly its responsibilities. And yeah, I think that's a big challenge for everyone, especially for you guys, since you're innovating, so frequently. I mean, you guys were way ahead of the game on the podcast. I don't know how many episodes you're up to.
We're in the 280s or something. Yeah.
280s.
260s maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal, and I applaud you. Do you have any previews for kind of what's next, what you guys are thinking about?
Lots. I think our focus going forward is we feel like we've tested a bunch of things and proven the concepts for a lot of the things we're doing. And the way forward is just doubling down on that, trying to help lawyers find the tools that they need to practice better. So like our product pages are a huge focus area right now, where we're trying to, we're building software at this point, because we're trying to build like software to help lawyers make decisions about their products and also about their firms. So we're trying to give lawyers better information about the health of their firms, financially, structurally, whatever. So like our small firm scorecard is a big thing that we've developed, and that we're continuing to try and help lawyers use that as a way to gauge it's kind of a KPI or a metric for their own firms. The same for our resource pages, which are all the free pages about how to start and build a law practice, how to manage it, all that kind of stuff. Getting those things built out and updated. And then in the lab, our private community is, there are definitely problems to solve in there. It's been really awesome. It's really successful. We have an amazing group. I'm really looking forward to, in a couple of weeks, meeting a lot of our new members at LabCon in Atlanta, which is the conference we do twice a year in Atlanta and Minneapolis, and just finding more ways to innovate with that, because we just want it to be better. So we kind of know all of the pieces of what we're doing, and the way forward is just to there's a lot of hard work to do on making those things amazing, and they're good, and we just want to make them great. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're just concentrating on providing the most value. I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about. And that's why people keep coming back to your site. It's a great site. You're getting rid of the thin content or the content that's maybe outdated and updating. I'm sure you have some challenges because software is always changing. So you have to update those product pages all the time.
Oh man. Keep that, and, even just keeping the site running. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we talked a ton. We talked about, right people, right seats. We talked about your book. We talked about, focus and some of your daily routines on concentrating on those high value activities. What are some action steps that people should start doing right now based upon the advice that you gave us?
I think if anything I have said resonates, or if you're just like, what the hell is Lawyerist all about? The small firm scorecard is the most concise, fastest way I can think of to give anybody like, here's what this is all about. And you can just find that on the front page of our site. It's 50 questions, 43, I think, for solos, that have to do with how your firm is organized, is structured, your your philosophies, your mindset for approaching law practice. And we've tried to add, these are the success metrics that we think you should be focused on. It's a self-evaluation. And at the end, you'll get a grade. And just, if it's your first time, you're probably not going to get a great grade. And it's not because you are bad at law practice. It's because nobody has told you what you need to be good at yet. So the small firm scorecard is probably the first thing I would focus on. Or alternatively, read the first chapter of our book, which is free. You can get it on our site. The first chapter of our book kind of pulls everything together. And if that resonates with you, then you're probably one of our people. And if you read it and you're like, these guys are full of shit, then you're probably not. And you should feel free to ignore everything we have to say until you go out of business, because you're totally wrong about where things are going.
Well, I can tell you, you're definitely not full of shit, and the value you guys provide is tremendous.
Some people think we are. Like, when Stephanie and I we're doing a presentation, and there are a whole bunch of older lawyers grumbling in the back. And at one point, I was finally just like, raise your hand if you think we're full of shit, and all the hands in the back went up. Like eight old lawyers in the back were like, you guys suck. So they got their CLE credit. So whatever.
Well, hey, I can definitely tell you there's a lot of value in that scorecard. So,
thanks.
So guys, we've been talking to Sam Glover, founder of The Lawyerist, co-author of The Small Firm Roadmap, a survival guide to the future of your law practice. Sam, where can people learn more about you?
Just go to lawyerist.com. Easy
Thanks
enough.
so much, Sam.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Rankings Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.